The US Congress is deadlocked. At the center of this crisis are proposals that could make a huge difference to millions of people in the country, especially those from poor families. From infrastructure to healthcare, these proposals are essential for America to build back to better, as President Joe Biden declared. The President and Democratic Party leadership in Congress support these proposals. However, the structure of US policy making and legislation has rendered the passing of these bills very difficult. Just a few individuals are in a place to block the entire series of proposals until their demands are accepted. What are these proposals? What kind of impact could they have on the people in the US? Who are the people and forces blocking them?
What is in front of Congress right now that is causing massive gridlock is the Build Back Better agenda that was originally promoted by President Biden. It's been through some permutations, but what has become deeply contentious inside of the United States Congress are things around social provisions, the social wage, if you will. There are a number of highlight functions of this, but probably the principal elements of it that have been promoted are: one, would be an expansion of a child tax credit that already exists that would send essentially every family in the United States a check of several $100s a month to help with whatever they need with their expenses. But one of the principal issues that is at stake is childcare, which is extremely expensive inside of the United States. And so there are many things that families have already been using this child tax credit for. It was expanded during the pandemic. But of course, one of the major areas long term in which it seemed to have a big effect will be to reduce the cost of childcare for many families in this country. And along with that, there's also a proposal for universal pre-K. So the prior to the earliest grade, essentially from age 3 on, which not only will provide additional schooling for young people, but also will take the burden off of many families who have to find very expensive childcare programs for their children who are in those age groups in order to be able to go to work and to be able to provide for those children. There's also a major proposal to expand Medicare, which is the social insurance healthcare system for elderly Americans. And right now, Medicare covers many, many people, but there are still many things it does not cover. It does not cover, for instance, dental. It does not cover vision. It does not cover hearing aids. So there would be an expansion of Medicare to cover some of those other essentials for senior citizens from a healthcare perspective, and also an expansion of Medicare in and of itself to reach more people at a slightly lower age, but an age, of course, where still many people are not able to access significant health care and are coming towards the end of their working lives, which is whom Medicare is for. There'll also be an expansion or proposed expansion of Medicaid, which is the lower income social insurance healthcare program for Americans. About 2 million people would gain healthcare that way. And then there is also going to be more of a robust expansion of what many have known to become called Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, in adjusting the subsidies essentially so that more people are able to get access to that healthcare and the costs are held down for others. There are many, many other provisions in there. Of course, there's a provision to make all community colleges, which are, a form of higher education in the United States that can often combine a stepping stone to a traditional 4-year college degree, or oftentimes help people gain skills in a 2-year time period in order to be able to enter the labor market in some sort of skilled profession. And so this proposal, as it stands right now, would provide all public community colleges free for anyone who would want to attend. Then there are many, many, many other issues. I mean, we're talking about housing, hundreds of billions of dollars to help provide housing for lower income people. And I could really go on. And we were talking about, for example, people have seen last year the uprising that took place in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. There's about $107 billion proposed for what are known as violence interruption programs, which are non-police ways of addressing community violence. So really trying to address, or at least purportedly address, what many have been in the streets demanding in terms of defunding the police and funding alternatives. And so it's a very expansive and a very broad bill. The budget reconciliation bill is what it's called, because it's passed through a process called reconciliation, which is a complicated question, but we can get to. But what this bill basically does at the end of the day is raise the floor for working class people in the United States. I mean, it helps many people who are already doing all right, but it also will help millions, tens of millions of individuals. One other issue that I left out that's very important, it'll help raise the wages for long-term care workers and assisted living homes and working with those with disabilities who need assistance on a regular basis, who are often working poverty wage jobs. So by and large, it really is a lifting of the floor. It's providing many things that are not 100%, not only 100% needed, but are 100% provided for by almost every other country in a similar economic situation as the United States, and quite frankly, many who are not and are in a much worse economic system than the United States. So it is a justice measure on the one hand, but I think it's also a measure that deals very directly with the felt needs of tens of millions of people who are living at or near poverty. And there's about 140 million people in the United States, population 330 million, that are living below the poverty line, or really the official poverty line, or what really should be the official poverty line, which is about 200% above it. I mean, I think that the reality of what's happening with the Build Back Better agenda is that it is massively popular all over the country, even with many Republicans, certainly a plurality, and in certain cases a majority. So what it all comes down to, and why there is gridlock, is the power of elite moneyed capitalist interest in the US political system. Everything is turning on one issue, and that is taxes. Of course, this would expand many existing social programs. Doesn't start any new social programs by and large, but it does expand many existing ones. You have to find some way to pay for that. The proposal from the White House, the proposal from most Democrats in the Congress, has been to raise wages on the wealthiest Americans, who have, of course, trillions and trillions of dollars. Billionaires in the US alone made about $1.3 trillion in the pandemic. So the worst year for basically everyone else, the best year in history for them. US billionaires have something like $4.3 trillion. So when you do the math, you could actually pay for this entire Build Back Better package, $3.5 trillion, with the wealth of billionaires. But since there's only 700 some odd billionaires in the United States, even if you took $3.5 trillion from the collective wealth of billionaires, every billionaire in America would still be a billionaire. I think $1.3, $1.8 billion. Someone will have to do my math there, but an eminently reasonable proposal, since the way these people make their money is on the backs of working class people. But of course, they do not want to pay. So the wealthiest people, the wealthiest businesses, the largest business trade associations that lobby in Congress have all been spending millions of dollars to do everything possible to get people in Congress not to agree. So they've gotten the Republican Party, which is really just the direct adjunct of the billionaire class in the political arena, to lockstep be opposed to this completely. And then we've also seen that inside of the Democratic caucus, despite the fact that amongst all Democrats, this is extremely popular, there are at least two, Joe Manchin, Kristen Sinema, the names people have heard, but there are others who may be sort of hiding behind those two. And there are many more in the House, including Stephanie Murphy from Florida, Josh Gottmeyer from New Jersey, and others who have stood up for billionaires, not for average working people, but they're standing up for the rights of billionaires to not be taxed one extra cent. And they're using the very slim majorities that Democrats hold in both houses to basically prevent this bill from being passed. And not only preventing it from being passed, but there's a whole other issue, which is that there are ways that the Democrats perhaps could move these bills more quickly, but they are involved in various different Senate procedures that the Democratic leadership also does not want to change, does not want to push forward. So they don't even the leadership who claims to be for these bills does not want to use all their leverage, does not want to use all their tools to pass it, because ultimately at the end of the day, even those who are for it in Congress seem to be only for what they can get past the censors and the billionaire class and the handful of minority legislators who they have injected into Congress to block anything happening that could potentially hurt the bottom line of wealthy, profitable corporations or the major trust funds of wealthy, very rich individuals.